Welcome everybody to the Genesis Mindset, and in today's episode, I've been looking forward to this particular chat for a very long time, actually. So today, I'm talking to Surfacing, also known as John. So he's one of the key developers for XUSD Vibratile Asset. So as people may or may not know by now, I'm actually part of the team. So I've been having conversations with the team members. So the first was with Anders. If you want to check that one out, that was just at the end of last year. And today it's going to be with Surfacing. So we'll be going into John's journey as a developer and how he found his way into Pulsechain and his experience with Atropa and Dysnomia. He was actually one of the key figures in the early days of the IRC chat logs. So then we're also going to be digging into obviously what XUSD is and how it's a unique asset on Pulsechain as a vibratile asset, which is similar to a stablecoin, but it's also quite different. And it's the difference of this as a vibratile asset that made me very, very bullish on this project. And then finally, we'll also be talking about some project updates that the team has been working on. And obviously, I think this episode is going to be a really great episode for people who are new to XUSD and people who are seasoned campaigners in the XUSD. So without further ado, we'll bring up Surfacing.
Hey, how's it going?
Good man. Good. How are you? How was it backstage?
It was good. Just chilling.
Just chilling. Yeah, I actually I always like to have things more organic, to like, oh, hey, how's it going, like live, rather than do it in the background, then ask again when you join. So it's always a bit awkward. So
Right.
But yeah, we did chat before. So yeah, man, good to see you. So obviously this is our third meeting. So the first one was when I first joined the team. Then we obviously had a short little chat after that as well, which was really, really nice to get to know you more on a personal level. And today, now obviously introducing you to this particular audience. So I think anyone who follows this channel is mostly familiar with the Atropa ecosystem, so I'm sure they're going to be really interested in your perspective. So one of the first things that I'd love to ask you is basically your background as a developer. So how did you find your way into Pulsechain? Just tell us your background as a developer and how you found your way into Pulsechain.
Right. Yeah, so I went to school to be actually a meteorologist and computer scientist back in 2010, I guess. So several years ago, and I had a lot of experience with that, and then kind of found myself just not finishing up school and doing other work. Actually, I found myself in the woods and was just like, I like the woods. So I kind of hung out there for a little while. But then kind of stumbled upon DeFi again, or not again, for the first time. I knew about blockchain technology. Bitcoin was born, but then got into DeFi and realized with Ethereum, there was smart contracts, which are very similar to C and Java, which I had learned, and was just like, man, this is awesome. I need to get back into coding. And so I took a couple online courses and then pretty much taught myself. And then started doing other projects and other chains, mostly as community manager and stuff like that. And then really got into the code aspect of it because I was kind of struggling with other developers because I had visions and they couldn't really connect at the code, even though like I knew it could be done. So I was like, screw it, I'm just going to do it myself, kind of thing. And then a friend of mine really bugged me to get onto Pulsechain, and it took him a while, but then eventually I did, and I said like, sure, I'll come check it out. And then and he told me all about Atropa, and right away I was like, sweet, these launches are awesome. And I started to make a sniper bot to hit the launches, and that was really cool because it gave me a really hard challenge, and because there's a lot of competition, and it really improved my coding skills as well, and as well was profitable. So it kind of like I was stuck then after that kind of thing. And then really kind of fell in love with the whole community aspect of Pulsechain and then everything about it. But it's also really interesting too because I was never a Richard Hart follower. But later on, I kind of found out that like a lot of his visions are really similar to mine too. So it was like a plus too, which is really neat.
You mentioned something which, I mean, I found it very, very interesting, but you kind of just skimmed over it. You mentioned that you were living in the woods. Can you just like how living in the woods are we talking about here? Just out of curiosity.
So I went out to a vacation at like a dude ranch in Colorado, and like I got a job there. And so like this dude ranch was literally in the middle of the mountains. And so yeah, I just got a job there and just never went home. So I kind of ended up there, and then had a after that season was over, I like ended up in like a trailer park in Durango, Colorado, which was like nestled in like this like little valley. And I had to like find firewood to heat my trailer for like a whole winter, and like just did stuff like that. So I was really
Wow.
disconnected from everything internet related for quite a while. That was like a couple of years, and
Wow.
did stuff around there. Yeah, worked in like a pizza shop and just kind of like hung out, found myself really.
I
I'm
bet.
also
I
like an
bet.
Eagle Scout. I do a lot of camping and all that kind of stuff. So like it wasn't like completely new to me. I'm very much in tune with like the nature and do a lot of camping, do a lot of canoeing, hiking, and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a relief to be disconnected from like the whole
Mm,
world in a way.
I bet they were the most peaceful years of your life.
Right. I mean, they were intense, but yeah, no, it was pretty peaceful. It was interesting.
Mm. Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah, and I wonder if that kind of idea of like going into nature and being really connected with nature is something that made you like really stick with some of the ideas with Pulsechain. Because I know for myself personally, I'm very much in. Well, I mean, I like to consider myself to be in tune with nature and spirituality and all of
Right.
these kinds of things. And I find there's like principles and ways of being within nature that I find like almost, I mean, decentralization and blockchain and DeFi as one example, but they're very much, in my opinion, more exemplified on Pulsechain, especially. And one thing that I wanted to really highlight as well is when we were having the very first conversation just between us, you mentioned how the Pulsechain community was really different. Of all the blockchains that you'd been on, I think you mentioned there was like between half a dozen to a dozen. The community on Pulsechain is what really made it a sticking point for you. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like most other blockchains, they have like a foundation, and then they're very large project oriented. So like you have a foundation which then funds all these other projects, and then those projects become large on the chain itself because the foundation who is funding them puts them up front, and then it's almost like it's very centralized in a way and almost corporatized. Whereas here, it's not that at all. Like, I mean, we don't hear from the PulseX devs really at all, and they just kind of do their thing, and then the community and everything builds around it. And it's really interesting because, um, I kind of come from a festival or Burning Man type of like environment where like you bring the party, you bring the atmosphere, you bring everything to the event yourself and share with everybody. That's kind of the very same mentality here on Pulsechain. Like everybody has their own input, and everybody kind of does what they want to do, and it kind of adds to the whole spirit of the pulse chain itself, which is awesome. And it's also nice to have people accept that as well.
I love that. I love what you just said. Yeah, that's something that you didn't say before. So that's really really cool to hear. That it really does feel like that, to be honest. Everyone's just kind of like doing their own thing and adding a piece of themselves to the
Right.
blockchain, to the whole community, and we're all just like this ever growing consciousness and community.
Right.
It's a really really beautiful thing. So that's really
And
cool,
there's no
man.
like
So
fear of like getting, or there's no fear of like meeting a quota. There's no fear of making something that is somebody else's vision or in line with somebody else. They're just doing what they do. And Maria is a really good example of that as well.
mm, yeah, so as in like in the concept of like, maybe having the fear of plagiarizing someone's idea, you mean? Or
Or just like, you have an upper boss saying like, hey, we want this and this and this. And then as a developer, you're kind of constrained to just do that instead of just doing whatever you want to, or not like whatever you want to, just doing whatever ideas you have. And having the ability to do whatever ideas you have kind of goes into more like an art form of just creativity.
mm, so the atmosphere of Pulsechain is kind of allowing you to, as a developer, just really delve into and express the ideas that
Experiment.
you really want to express without anyone telling you what to do.
Yeah, yeah. Or without like,
Mm.
like losing your funding, losing the ability to do what you need to do kind of thing. Like yeah, it's
Mm.
freedom.
Yeah, freedom and real DeFi, right? If the idea is
Right.
good, then it's going to grow. So
Right.
that's the real beauty of this. And obviously, yeah, I mean, we're going to go into XUSD in just a minute, but obviously with Atropa, you know, Maria's come here, created the Atropa ecosystem on this particular blockchain, and it's a, I mean, it's, in my opinion, it's more than a good idea. And obviously, it's making people really gravitate to it because it's a brilliant idea. So obviously, you were mentioning your first experience into it with the sniper bots. Like, what are some things that really made you kind of become deeply fascinated with Atropa? So, for example, for myself, it was like, first of all, seeing the fact that there was this interrelationship between all these tokens. It wasn't just like I was looking at this one thing. It was like I was looking at 100 things that were interconnected to create this one whole. And that was something that was like, wow, this is epic. What was it about the Atropa ecosystem from a developer's mindset that made you really think, wow, there's something really going on here?
For me, so I got really fascinated with like the launches and whatnot, and then he kind of came out on the IRC, and he was quite an interesting character. What really got me interested was his background. Not many people know this, but like his resume was on his GitHub since day one, and so like it was quite interesting seeing what his accomplishments already were, and like why was he here doing this kind of thing. And then through the IRC, he came out with the whole dysnomia aspect of it, and he was, you know, publicly doing different code and whatnot, like through the GitHub and like on the IRC. And it was really fascinating for me because I'm still learning. I'm always learning. I think most developers should always be learning because there's always new updates on everything. And like I was following his code a lot because either helping audit his code or just learning from him essentially. And his coding style is just so different than what I have seen elsewhere that it was just really fascinating. And I learned so much just from following his own methodologies that like I was just kind of hooked. And then he going from like back and forth with him on different topics and different coding aspects, like he really started, like it was really interesting too because I could tell he was new to Solidity, but like he obviously knew so much about coding that like that doesn't really matter. He knows how it works in the background, so he just needed like to learn like just little aspects of it to get what he wanted to work, which were very high level concepts. And it was really cool seeing that kind of development through like, or at least through my eyes, watching him kind of learn the little things that make these like greater concepts actually like tangible. And like just learning from that, I was kind of like hooked in a way. And then also like when he released the dysnomia aspect with like the random number generators and his whole React type of encryption thing or whatever, that was really interesting to me because that is something that not like I've never seen that before. And I don't think anybody really has done that before, especially on like a scale that is on the blockchain, which is very low computer power oriented to calculate the numbers that go into it. Is very, very intelligent in the way he does it. So it was very efficient and like just brilliant kind of thing. And I think that his encryption areas in that regard, um, could lead to huge developments like in the future, when we get into like the quantum computing eras and whatnot.
Wow. So I mean, yeah, we won't go too much into that, but you think like even the things that he's working on with the random number generators can lead to things like quantum computing?
Right. So like the problem is with quantum computing is that once it gets to a point where it's more tangible, the powers behind it can easily crack most encryptions within seconds. But
Mhm.
his calculations and his numbers so far could possibly be quantum proof, so they couldn't be cracked by a quantum computer. So it hasn't been proven to be not that yet, I guess you could say. So I
Sure,
mean, it
sure.
still has to be like, you know, challenged, and he encouraged everybody to like challenge it. Um, but until proven wrong, then it's possible.
It's cool to hear you talk about it because obviously I put a tweet about that when I heard him talk about it in the Amsterdam and
Mhm.
like all the FUD. It was like the biggest tweet that I had for that year, I think, because there was so much FUD from people saying like, who's this guy? He's crazy and whatever. But actually hearing it from a developer who actually understands what he's done, it's really
Mhm.
cool, because I obviously don't really understand on that depth. So that's really cool. So yeah, and obviously I heard that you were auditing the dysnomia, some of that dysnomia code, you were keeping up with it. What about some of the newer developments? Have you been keeping up with it, or are you kind of a little bit just too busy working on your own things now?
I've been pretty busy working on my own things. I did, however, look at one of his newer contracts that he's been putting out. I forget the name of it, but like, yeah, he's been kind of doing like a lot of the same kind of stuff, like with the, I think it was a treasury contract or something like that. And like, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty standard. It's like, it seems to me like it's a contract where like you can throw tokens into it and then mint the token itself. And it's an interesting concept to do it within a token, because nobody does that. Like, people make backing treasuries all the time through like a DAO or something like that, where they just hold all the things, and then people vote on what they can do with it. But it's interesting to have it just in one token itself. Like, that's a concept that I have never seen before. Um, but it's very simple and easy to do. And so, like, essentially with these contracts, you can like give it tokens that are verified, I think, or allow, like the contract says, hey, you can give me this token and I'll mint you this token in return. And now somebody has the ability to withdraw those backing tokens to do whatever with. And I think the whole concept of it, it'd be like a treasury or a backing treasury or an insurance kind of policy type of thing, which is very interesting to do in just like a single token, because it's very simple and not a whole bunch of contracts put together. And that is definitely something that like I would like to do something like that in the future too, because like it's just really interesting and simple concept. And that kind of like is very unique to him, and that's probably because his background is not like Solidity oriented, so he's not following the rules of what other Solidity developers and people say you should do. He just is doing what he wants to do, and it creates really cool stuff.
There's really something to be said about that. If you look at a lot of like geniuses and innovators of the past, they come from outside of the mainstream thought patterns, because
Hmm.
they're not consumed in the way that everybody's doing everything. So they kind of have their own ideas, and they add their flavor to the existing kind of streams of thought, and then they end up
Right.
creating something innovative. So wow, this is actually yeah, I think we're definitely we could definitely go on and on about this a lot in a lot more detail. But I think I'd definitely conscious of time and everything like that. So I'd love to start talking about XUSD. But just before we do, so
Sure.
just on that, so you're saying it's a cool idea what he was doing with this with these contracts, right? What makes it a cool idea? So obviously it's like an innovative new idea, but because I'm pretty sure these are all like you can, I think you can like they're one-to-one with MV or something like this. I'm not 100% sure, but what about that do you think is like a use case for the
Oh
Atropa
yeah, so
ecosystem? What do you think he's
there
trying to do
is
with
the
it?
one that's one to one with MV, and that contract in itself is interesting because it's like a launch pad. You can create your own token from it, and your supply of that token is going to be however much MV you give it. So in that token contract itself, it's just like, well, I think, well, the one I'm thinking of isn't it. I don't know if it actually puts out a token or not. I'm not really quite sure. I've looked at it just recently. But like, you give it MV and it mints you a token that you can do whatever with, kind of like the LAO token in Factory. And the cool thing about that is that it will burn or lock up MV to the number of tokens that you want for your new token. So it's like a launch pad in one thing, and it's a launchpad
Mhm.
that just burns MV. It's pretty cool. I think it could be better, to be honest. Like, you could, like, for example, give it both, because I think the goal of it is just to lock up MV tokens for people, or just in general to lock up that token so it's not on the market. While also give somebody what they want to do with their own token. So it's like a utility for MV. But I think it could be a little bit better. Like, you could do it so that, like, you can lock up MV, but then also supply it with Pulse, wrapped Pulse, and it could make liquidity and then lock the liquidity too with your new token. So you can do other things like that with like the Launchpad type of contract. But it's a good start, I think.
Something to be
the
keeping
treasury.
in mind on.
Yeah.
And
so
the treasury? Yes.
That one is pretty cool. And let me get the name of that one real quick.
I have I've got this particular website, mint.aff.icu, where I think there's like half a dozen contracts that are like one-to-one with Treasury. There's the Fed, which is one-to-one with Treasury. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to.
It is, let's see here. Get it pulled up.
So like,
it's the Federal Deposit Insurance Contract, FDOC or whatever.
Okay. So the FDR, so I don't know if that's different to these. So there's all these ones which are one-to-one. You can basically swap Treasury bill for the Federal Reserve, but then there's these other ones now, this FDI, which isn't yet here. And you're saying that's different to being able to swap one-to-one with Treasury bill?
So I think you can, so Treasury bill, if I'm not mistaken, you can mint Treasury bill by giving it like a handful of tokens from the Atropa ecosystem itself. And so that one's cool too, because it's essentially just a treasury of those other tokens that are going to appreciate in value. And then he has the control to be able to unlock those tokens and use them or as like a treasury would. And the newer one, I'm not really quite sure the exact goal of it, but it kind of does the same thing. But I think it takes in more tokens, and it actually, I noticed that it releases the and one other token that's locked up within it by giving it another token too. So it's like a little bit, it's almost like the Treasury bill contract, but you can exchange tokens with it as well. And what makes it innovative is that it itself is a token. So most of the time, these kind of contracts will be like in control of a DAO or decentralized autonomous organization, and it'd be like several different contracts kind of working together, and then it takes a lot of human input and verification for it to like release these tokens or whatever. Where here, anybody can play with the token itself, which people can buy and sell it, and that creates a different price point. And you can then mint the token by giving it other tokens. And obviously, most people aren't going to do it unless it's profitable to mint the token. So as the price changes, you create an arbitrage situation that it creates an arbitrage situation where it will gain more tokens if the price is up, but it can't lose those tokens. It will just constantly be gaining tokens based on humans' greed or interest into making money off the arbitrage. And then after so many years, those tokens that are inside the contract will be worth a lot of money. So it's like a way to incentivize savings, if you will.
Yeah, I feel like, what was that? Sorry?
It's a way to incentivize savings through community participation.
Right. Yeah, I feel like in order to like really understand a lot of what's going on here, you kind of need to understand like more depth the economic system as well. Like this is the blockchain, but there's things. I mean, yeah, like you just said, like savings and these types of things that incentivize people and game theory. So, yeah, very, very interesting. So, yes. Now let's pivot on to XUSD. So obviously, XUSD is one of your creations. So you're part of the team. So the thing which obviously resonated with me the most was this concept of this being a vibratile asset. So I know that people straight away, when they started talking to me about this, were like, oh, it's not in competition with Pt I, or it's going to help Pt I. And I was just like, everyone thinks just because I talk about Pt I that I only care about Pt I. It's like, it's quite an interesting phenomenon. But I loved, once I started looking into it, this concept of it being a vibratile asset. So it's similar to a stable coin, but it's different. So there's obviously a few key differences. So I'm hoping that you can obviously explain that in a way that people can understand what is a vibratile asset and what makes this different to a stable coin.
Right. Well, I'll give it a shot. But like, yeah, so most stable coins, for example, PDI or just DAI in general, we'll use that because it's actually stable at $1 on Ethereum, is stable due to backing. So to mint DAI, you have to lock up like USDC or Ethereum and other tokens to then be able to mint the token. And then what that does is that it keeps the price up at $1 because if it goes below it, there's tokens in reserve to then buy it back up to $1, keeping it stable. Now, with XUSD, there is no backing per se. But we do have the same kind of goal and price point, and we call it normalizing at $1 instead of being pegged at $1. But so we want to normalize at $1, which means that we want to get the token to be around the dollar price point. Now, the reason why it's called vibratile is because the goal is to oscillate like in a wave around $1. And so it's kind of like a vibration or like a wave movement because it's going to go above $1 and then below $1 and above $1 and below $1. The reason why we do this is because, yeah, kind of like that. And the reason why we do this is because it's the community itself and the people using the token that's going to keep it at that price point and oscillation. Because there's no backing to it, we don't want people to think that if it goes below the dollar, that it won't return to the dollar because then people are just going to dump it and it's going to crash and cause a bank run. But because we want to instill the trust that it will get back up to $1 due to other mechanisms and just community buying it back up, knowing that at above $1 you'll be in profit because of price appreciation, that it will not cause a bank run. And it's more so of a educational kind of standpoint as well, as in not like lying to the community saying that it's going to be stable at $1 because it won't, because it's going to oscillate. And so because of that, that's what kind of makes us a little bit different than like a stable coin and most other stable coins. And because we're coming at this viewpoint and this kind of mentality, it kind of changes the dynamic of understanding of what tokens can do and what they are. And because it takes the entire ecosystem for it to actually be stable, just like, or to be relatively stable, kind of like the United States economy or any other economy with their dollar or currency. Like it fluctuates in price all the time. It's not going to be stable. And so that's kind of like the same mentality in a way.
And I thought one thing that's really interesting about this idea of it, oscillating around the $1 mark is the way that it incentivizes community engagement to basically help keep it. Like it incentivizes, yeah, well, actually, maybe you can explain that better than I can, but basically my understanding from what I was reading is the buying and the burning and the vibe pass, it's going to be part of people interacting with the token to help keep it around the 1-to-1 mark.
Yep. Yeah. So like one of our main, we call it terminal utility, is that, and part of the terminal utility is that it has to be something that will go on forever, and it actually burns the token itself. And when we mean burn the token, it means that we mean that it lessens the supply of the token. And currently that's done through just simple trading. And so as you trade more and more of the token, the supply will go down. And simple supply and demand will say that once your supply goes down and your demand even stays constant, your price is going to go up, bring it past $1. And then once above $1, it will inflate to bring it back down to $1. And then it'll oscillate, kind of thing. And so with that, like, how do we get people just to trade the token? Do we have people trade it just for that price appreciation and like swing trade it? Sure, you can do that. But really, the main goal in the end is to use it on like a marketplace, like any other currency. And when that happens, it's just naturally will kind of hold its stability or normalization, and you will see that price difference more so in the services or products that you're going to obtain with the token itself. Kind of like at your grocery store, something goes on clearance sale, sort of thing.
Gotcha. So one of the things that I just wanted to point out, because this is always something that people are obviously very interested in, it is price, and obviously the target generally is heading towards the one-to-one mark, but it's not that it's going to be pegged at the one-to-one, it's that it's going to oscillate, going to vibrate around the one-to-one. So anyone who's like collecting stable coins or potential stable coins, people following Pt I and Treasury Bill and now XUSD, like this basically represents an opportunity for it's like 528x to the dollar mark. So I just wanted to point that out because that's always something very bullish for people to keep in mind. So obviously also now you've come as a dev with the background of, you've got quite a deep background with stablecoins in general. So what led you down this road of XUSD? What made you start to develop this concept, and why did you make Pulsechain your home?
So when I first got into DeFi, I got into tomb forks, which are essentially the same thing. It's a stable coin, or what they used to call them as algorithmic stable coins. But the tomb forks themselves and tomb finances, they were broken. They never worked. They always went under peg, and then it always caused a bank run. And not many of them regained that dollar peg. And so they in itself were just broken. And I had fallen into like a lot of fascination with them and how they work and whatnot, and I was just hooked on them essentially. And so XUSD is essentially like my own
Just
take
quickly,
on that
sorry,
kind of
John.
concept.
Just one
What was
second.
that?
Sorry. So Terra Luna is an example of this, right?
Right. Right.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
Go on.
Terra
Sorry.
Luna is the example of it, and honestly, why we don't call it an algorithmic stablecoin anymore, because it's now Vibratile Asset.
Just give it a bad
Right.
rap. Yeah.
It causes too much PTSD, and it's not accurate. Because
Sure.
people within the Terra Luna ecosystem will, part of the reason why that kind of token crashed like it did is that everybody freaked out and we're like, oh, sell it off kind of thing. There's also a lot of other things behind it which made it do what it did, and we won't go deep into that, but like it was just like, a lot of people got together and were like, hey, we can make a lot of money with this crashing, let's do this kind of thing. It was so insane.
Mm.
And like
You think that actually happened?
one yeah, like one thing like that I think he really messed up on is that he was able to, or he took like deals and made it available on centralized exchanges. I don't agree with that aspect. You're making the whole concept of these algorithmic stable coins or vibratile assets is that it's not backed by a government organization or something that is in control of it. So
Mm.
it's supposed to be pure DeFi. If like let's say the United States government goes down and so does their dollar, your backed dollar stablecoin is not going to really hold that much value anymore. So also a little bit backtrack, and the creation of Bitcoin was to break away from that system altogether. Now, if you have something that is completely backed by that system, then what are you doing? You're not breaking away from it at all. So the whole concept of the algorithmic stablecoin and vibratile assets is to be fully free from the government and centralized
Mm.
organizations that control the world's money. And so the idea that to have it on a centralized exchange back into their control didn't really make sense with me, and it kind of, I think, pretty much crashed it in general. I don't want to see XUSD on any centralized exchange. Now, if they buy it up and put it on centralized exchange themselves, go right ahead. But I will not personally put it on any centralized exchange or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Keep it strictly DeFi. But like I said, they can buy it all up all they want and then put it on there. It'll help the price.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So before I asked you about that question, you were basically talking about how you were very fascinated with these ideas. And so I just wanted to highlight that you were talking about how there were failures and Terra Luna was like the biggest failure. And then this basically led you down the road of heading towards XUSD. So
Right.
how did this this fascination develop into XUSD?
Right. Well, I guess I wouldn't say Terra Luna was a complete failure. I mean, it did really well for what it was doing. Um, I just don't think they promoted it correctly, and it just led to more problems. And so also we're in DeFi, which is a very experimental place, and I think everything should be looked at as an experiment currently. And so we learn from their mistakes and then create new things. And so my creation with XUSD was kind of like learning from their mistakes, learning from the mistakes of other token concepts like Tomb, and then creating something that is very similar, but more advanced. I'm building off of what other people's ideas were and throwing my own ideas into it. And so it's completely like my own baby, if you will. Most of the code is all original and it's not forked from anything, um, except for maybe like a couple things here and there, like the ERC20 standard in general, I guess. But most everything else is all new code. And the concepts are all very original, but kind of building off of um, other people's works like Tomb Finance. Most the easiest example, I guess.
Okay, so really, in the same way that Hex is a better Bitcoin, we can say XUSD is a better
Right.
Terra Luna.
Right. And also like the
Probably
reason why I
wouldn't.
picked
Probably wouldn't. What's that? Sorry.
right. So the reason why I also picked Pulsechain too is because it's a chain full of community involvement. Also, the fact that there is the Pt I narrative going on here. You guys are starting from under peg, going back up to peg, which is not an easy feat. Like nobody does that, like at all.
Mm.
And it's rarely seen or done. I personally have done it with the token before through just community involvement, kind of like what they're trying to do with Pt I, and it takes a mindset of the community to achieve that, which is super rare and hard to come by. So I want to add to that narrative by creating my own kind of token that will do the same thing too, and not compete really with them, more so to kind of tap into that same kind of energy and mindset that everybody else has going on with it. And like therefore, like we also have like our biggest pair with Pt I kind of thing. Like we want to ride the wave up with them.
So, as Pt I heads towards $1 due to the liquidity bonding, this is also going to get dragged up with it. But the beautiful thing that really resonated with me was the fact that they actually really complement each other, because if Pt I is to peg, I mean, one of my theses is, or my thinking around it is, it's not just going to be through like this P maker fork. It's going to have all of these different things that are going to protect its stability and back it. And I see something like XUSD as being like a perfect backing asset to it, as something that's basically vibrating around the one-to-one.
Yep. Yeah, like honestly, like I think if Pt I goes to peg, almost everything on chain that's a P copy will also go to its peg, or its counterparty on Ethereum price. The interesting thing is that there's a lot of tokens that are paired already with Pt I itself, just from the fork over from Ethereum. So if you want everything to go up together, through Richard Hart's law, I guess you could say, all the liquidity is connected through Pt I. And so if you pump just the one token, all the other tokens are also going to rise with it. And so
Yeah.
it's an interesting concept to bring up the entire community along with you by doing that, which is kind of really cool and awesome. And so, but yeah, like once we get to pay, what's going to make people not just dump the token with Pt I, and so that's where you have like XUSD, you can make liquidity and farm another token and get more rewards from that, and then also cash it in on people trying to sell the token or whatever, because you're going to get trading rewards within the liquidity. And
Mm.
there's a bunch of other concepts like that. Um, And we also plan on creating like a lot of different other aspects, like our vaults, for example. They do auto compounding rewards, so they work for you without you having to do anything. And there's going to be more higher concepted like vaults and whatnot as well in the future that do more complex transactions. Like, let's say, once there's a more solid lending platform, if you will, I want to do one that like does longs and shorts via leverage on lending platforms. So you borrow one token, sell the other, or you borrow and then restake, borrow and restake, and then be able to increase your leverage on like a certain token as it goes up in price, which is really interesting. And then also like
Mm.
single-sided lending and stuff like that with
Yes.
most other tokens.
I
So
was just
our
trying
vaults are going to be
to.
on the
I think
LP page,
they're going to be on the LP page.
LP staking.
LP staking.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. So we can see here, and of course these numbers are going to be. I always look on this as well. So I think someone in the XUSD chat was asking about the Dex Screener. So just FYI for everyone's own information, like Dex Screener is not necessarily the most accurate. So sometimes the liquidity or the volume is not actually shown accurately here. You'll see it more accurately on liquidityversals.app. And then also on XUSD. And you were talking about in the AMA the other day that but this was also getting updated. I think there used to be a lag, but has it been like fully
It
updated
has
now? I
not been
think
updated yet. Yeah, so we
okay.
have kind of fixed the lag on our test servers and whatnot. But we are still completing it all to be able to push it live. Now, so when I first created this project, I was the only developer on this. I was doing both front end and back end and Solidity coding, and I have probably, since going to school and then coming back to DeFi and programming altogether, probably only like 3 years of experience doing this kind of thing. And so there was a
Wow.
lot of I don't know the greatest best practices for it. I just have a lot of ideas and know how to code, especially Solidity, really well. And so when it comes to like the front end stuff and all that kind of stuff, I was lacking in a lot of ways. But now that we have hired like some other devs, with like our Constantine, who is our other backend developer, he has 30 years of experience in Java and worked with like huge companies. And so he
Wow.
has really been working with me a lot on getting the code correct in a way that is, I guess acceptable, if you will. But like really teaching me how to use GitHub, really teaching me how to do unit testing, and making sure before we push anything live that it has been self-audited and works flawlessly. And so it's taking like a little bit of time to get everything right, but like we're pretty close to that. And like through that, I've learned so much. It's pretty crazy. And so like our first major update to the front end will be with all the numbers, and we're actually changing the servers that we use and all that kind of stuff, so that it's more quick, it's more responsive, and everything is super accurate and has been also then tested as well through our unit testing and all this kind of stuff. So it's very proper and it's very professional in a way too. So I'm really
Gotcha.
excited about that.
Cool. I just wanted to respond to this here. Some people are just asking some questions here, so I just want to quickly respond to these guys. So Hex Down Under, you're off to sleep. All the links are in the description, bro. So if you go to the description on YouTube, you'll see the contract address, you'll see the website, you'll see the Telegram. All the links that you're going to need will be in there, man. So yeah, check that out. And then I'm a freedom fighter. Why not just use PulseX? I'm not too sure what this was in relation to, unless you were talking about providing liquidity. Yeah, I don't know if you can clarify that one. I'm a freedom fighter, but obviously, yeah. I mean, is there going to be a different? Maybe you can highlight those differences, John. The differences between providing liquidity on PulseX, say for XUSD and Pulsechain, versus providing it in the vaults.
Well, all the liquidity through the vaults are supplied on PulseX. So we do use PulseX liquidity. And most
Okay,
of actually almost all of our liquidity is on that DEX. Because we want to be really
gotcha.
tied to Richard Hart and all his tokens too.
Okay, perfect. So but in the sense of, okay, let's say I want to now add my liquidity into it. I've got a ton of XUSD. I've got, a million XUSD. I was checking before is like, I think it's only like 2K or something or thereabouts, 2,000 or something. So let's say I got $2,000 worth of XUSD, $2,000 of Pulsechain. I can obviously add to the liquidity on PulseX, but I can also deposit it here in the vault, right?
Right. So if you had a million XUSD, you would actually use the Zap button. And what Zap does is that it sells half of it, makes liquidity with whatever you're zapping into. And so it sells half of it, makes liquidity, and then it also deposits that token into the vault, the auto compounding vault, which gets rewards, and then auto compounds your rewards for more liquidity, and sends you back the receipt token or vault token, and all that is done in a single transaction. So if you were to do that just by yourself on PulseX, you would have to approve both tokens, then add the liquidity, and that is what, 3 transactions altogether. And then you would have to come back and then deposit into the vault, kind of thing. So it takes 3 or 4 transactions and puts them all together into one, without you having to even do the math. You just put a number in and go.
Okay, so you're saying if I just have, say, a million XUSD, I can zap XUSD, it'll sell half of it, and then basically it'll sell half of it and purchase the other side of the LP with that. Is that correct? And then put it all into the LP.
Yeah, and then it makes it a liquidity token, and then also deposit into our vault, which deposits into the farm, which receives rewards.
Nice.
And
then so what?
Yeah. And
Go
so
on.
then the
Sorry.
vault itself, what all these vaults do, and the compound button up at the top, if you click it, it would compound at least 10 volts at one time. And what that means is that so all your LP tokens are put into like a MasterChef contract that receives XUSD rewards. And so what it then does is that it then sells those rewards for half of the other token, makes more liquidity, and then puts that liquidity token back into the vault where your liquidity tokens are at. So it actually increases in number your liquidity that you have provided over time, essentially for free. Or it's a great way of saving gas because you're doing everybody's at one time instead of each individual having to do 3 or 4 different transactions to then add more to it, which then gives you an what is it, compounded interest. So instead of just a normal linear curve of rewards, you're going to have an exponential curve to your rewards because it redeposits your number back into the staking pool, which means you'll have more rewards every time you get rewards, kind of thing.
So could you sorry re-explain that
Sure.
maybe using, so you were saying exponential rewards. Could you kind of elaborate on that?
So let's say you start off with 10 and you put 10 into the staking pool, and you're going to get, with those 10, you're going to get 1 reward per day. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you take those rewards, sell the rewards, and then put those rewards back into liquidity and back into the thing, you'll have, let's say, 12 in there now. And so the
Okay.
12 will give you, like, instead of 1 or 2 or whatever I said before, it'll give you 5 rewards per day. So then you do
Mm-hmm.
that again, and then you'll have, 15, and then you'll get 8 per day. So it's going to be like an exponential increase.
Mm-hmm.
It's a concept called compounding interest. And it's
Okay.
yeah. And so like yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay. So it's compounding. Okay. Yep. Understood.
compounding
Okay.
interest.
It was just the words. I think maybe my brain
Yeah, I
didn't
think
connect. So
I
okay.
was forgetting the actual term for a second there, and just trying to explain what it is. Compounding interest.
No, all good, man. All good. So yeah, so one of the things that I'm really interested in, obviously now, let's talk about this from the perspective of a new buyer. So obviously people on this channel, maybe they haven't heard of XUSD or maybe they have. What do you think makes XUSD an attractive investment for potential new investors?
What makes it attractive for new investors is that, well, first of all, we're under peg now, so you can join us into the rally to peg. that in itself is going to give you a huge increase in, just whatever value increase or whatever over time.
Mhm.
So because we have a goal oriented at a set number that we're going to get to, it's almost like a guaranteed increase in value. Now, there's a lot of other concepts that go into XUSD as well, that you can gain more value with as well. But also,
Mm.
because you're joining XUSD, it's also very community oriented. You're going to be joining a community of very like-minded individuals and people who are here to pretty much help you out. I like to structure my communities in a way that is I want to say informed. So we don't like cut around corners or anything. We try to be very open with everything in the community, and we try to just teach people. I see one of the biggest problems in DeFi and in crypto in general is either terminology or lack of information and lack of transparent information. Like sometimes you don't get like correct answers or not correct answers. You just get kind of like people that just want to beat around the bush or developers that are never in chats. And that kind of creates either a mystique or just incorrect information that people then invest into and they get rugged or whatever. I like to create an environment that is very informational, and I like to share a lot of tools with people. I like to just spread knowledge. I think it's a really good
Mm.
thing and very important, especially in the stage that we are at in DeFi in general. The whole floodgates have not opened yet for the general community. Like it's not a thing. Like it's just not a thing yet. And the reason why that isn't a thing yet is because there's not enough people knowledgeable enough to then teach other people correctly to then get involved. And so it's like a learning curve, and that learning curve is going to have to be less of a curve for us all to kind of reap the benefits, if you will, of the floodgates being open to the general public. And so our community is very knowledge oriented, and we want to grow with everybody else. So by investing into XUSD, you get to become part of a community that is, for the people, kind of like Pulsechain is. Um, and yeah,
Mm.
so there's that. There's price appreciation. There's also whole another aspect of it that we haven't really talked too much about.
So
We might
just
not
quickly
have
before we
like.
go into that aspect, I just wanted to add just my 2 cents to that. I mean, first of all, there's over 500 people in the Telegram, and I have noticed because I've been watching it every day, and I have noticed. I mean, here's just one example straight off the bat. Like, there's people who are regularly answering the questions, and it's the kind of vibe that I like. It's not a like, oh, we're better than this ecosystem and we're trying to steal value from that ecosystem to build our own ecosystem. Like it's a collaborative. It's a
Right.
collaborative coin. Like it's supporting everything else and everything else supports it. That's what I love about it. That kind of vibe.
Right.
So I just wanted to add to that as well. It's like coexisting with everything. So
Yeah,
yeah, what was the
exactly.
thing that you wanted to talk about? You were
Yeah,
about to go on to
and
something
so kind
else.
of like to go off your kind of thing what you were just saying there, like we're all so early to this. There's no need to be cutthroat with any other projects or anything else
Mm,
out there. We could all just work together at this point, and we'll all go up. Like there's no reason to either like live off of somebody else's tokens or whatever kind of thing and bring back to our own token. It's we all can just work together kind of thing. And yeah, so that's like
mm,
one
mm.
concept that I know on other chains nobody does that. They're always like don't even talk about another project kind of thing and stuff like that. Like if you have questions you can always ask, even if it's about like some other project or whatever, and I'll always give you an honest opinion about it. Like
Hmm.
it's always good to spread
Someone
knowledge.
asked about PETI
But
here,
yeah,
so it's not like you're going to get blocked if you even mention PETI. It's not like that. It's like
right.
I like that vibe. So
Right. Now, and if you come in and shill some other thing, just like as a shill, yeah, we don't allow
of
that.
course, of
That's
course.
yeah. But yeah, so like the whole other aspect of XUSD is a governance aspect. And it's really interesting, and it's a super I don't know, it's a really cool concept, I personally think. But the whole governance aspect of it is that it creates the ability for the community to say not who can do what with the token, well, kind of, but like it says how do you say, like so we have a vibe system, and a vibe system essentially is like a tax on the token itself, and each individual has their own different vibe score. Now these vibe scores currently are only defined by whether you buy the token or sell the token, but in the future through governance you're going to have the ability to introduce your own vibe classes, and these vibe classes can be anything. And it could be something that's like if you hold a certain number of another community token, you're going to get a less vibe score. And a less vibe score essentially means that you'll have less tax when trading the token. So it creates, and anybody can propose anything. It just needs to be voted in by a 50% majority of all vibe pass holders, kind of thing. So there's like a huge governance aspect to it, and that governance aspect creates the ability to protect the community itself, because like you could have bad actors, and then you can create a class that says, hey, these bad actors they can get a huge vibe score or tax so that they won't be able to use the token essentially. And that's just like a very simple example of it. But like you can have so many different the possibilities are endless essentially for what people can propose. And it's meant to be that way because I'm not going to be able to come up with everything, but I want to be able to create a tool that the community can use to create anything that anybody else comes up with. And then in the end, because the vibes also essentially the taxes burn the token, it kind of plays into the aspect of maintaining the peg itself too. So there's a
Mm.
whole governance, and um, there's one word I like to describe it. It's like a community token that kind of not validates itself, but it gives the community credibility because you're governing itself. Like something doesn't really have much of credibility if it's just the Wild West, but if you have rules and stuff like that are put into place, that makes it credible. Now, some people might say that, well, that seems centralized, but it's not. It's on a decentralized platform, so it can't really be. And plus, it's the community that says what can and cannot go, meaning that it's not one entity that says anything, but it's a group of people that says what can and cannot happen, I guess.
So there's a very strong element of a freedom of speech.
Right.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. And I would strongly encourage people to. I've had a read through these documents, and I think Nikki's still updating them. Is that correct? Has he updated everything on the actual
Well,
website yet?
those are not fully updated just yet. We will have those out here pretty soon. We've all been
Okay.
working on them.
But even if I mean, I'm the type of learner where I like to read like the old version and the new version because it helps my
Mhm.
brain as well, kind of like
Right.
see it in a different way. So if you're that type of person, then I would recommend reading this. But if you want to wait for the final version, Nikki's still working on the final version. So but I've read through all these docs, and then when I read it again, again and again, it will really like sink into my brain. So
Yeah.
yeah, awesome. Did you want to say anything about that? Sorry.
No, you're spot on.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so in terms of that's really cool. So we've addressed the value proposition for new people. What about existing people? So one of the things, I mean, I've left the link in the description as well. So your YouTube channel, so you guys do regular AMAs, which is really cool. So you're really starting to open up the communication and interaction with the community, which is really really cool. So in terms of that, is there any kind of big updates or progress that you've been making behind the scenes that you want to start to share now in this particular stream?
Yeah, sure. Like our whole front end update has been coming along very nicely. I know like it's taken me a while to get set up and to get to developing again, kind of thing. And so like within the past couple of days, it's just been kind of crazy on the development side of things. And we have made some just huge progress. And it's gonna be great because I'll have a meeting tomorrow with Constantine, our other dev. And we'll probably not going to give any promises, but we'll probably have the entire front end updated and pushed out within the next week or so. And
Oh, wow.
it's
Nice.
gonna be pretty massive. It won't look a whole lot different. I mean, there'll be parts that do look different, but it'll be super fast, super responsive, and extremely accurate with everything. And that's gonna be a huge update, kind of thing. Because yeah, the whole back end is almost completely different. The what is it? The tools that we use to connect to the blockchain have all been updated to like VM, which is like one of the newer kind of JavaScript libraries that kind of connect to the chain itself. And it's super updated and super clean, super fast, and it will be super reliable. It's pretty awesome.
Nice. Yeah, I do know that you were talking about that in the AMA, so that's really cool. So all the back end stuff, but obviously there won't be huge changes on the front end. It'll just be subtle changes. But to be perfectly honest, the front end is already like it's a beautiful front end. I really like it. I'm all for like simplicity and just straight to the point.
Right.
So this is very well designed. So I think one thing that I'd like to ask, I mean, again, let me know about your time and everything. But obviously, one thing that I wanted to talk about was there's these different stages of development for this particular
Yes.
project. So, did you want to go into some details about where we are, what's gonna finish this stage of the development, and then what's going to lead into the next ones?
Yeah. So currently we're in the distribution phase of the development, which means that we are giving out rewards in XUSD. So the supply of XUSD is increasing right now through the rewards that are being given out. And yeah, so we're kind of changing the names on those ones. So it technically is like the Genesis phase.
Hmm.
And so but we're going to change the name of that to distribution phase because we're distributing XUSD token. And so what this gives people is the opportunity to acquire as much XUSD as possible before we turn off the current inflation or distribution of the token. And then we make our run to peg. Now, before that can happen, we have to create the minting protocol itself. And the reason why the minting protocol isn't created from the start is because it needs to be executed in a way that is like not foolproof, but is super solid, heavily audited. Because once that goes live, all the control for the inflation of the token will be in the hands of that contract or group of contracts, however it's going to turn out. And it's important that we get that right. So we don't have a Terra Luna kind of thing where it just mints off or whatever kind of craziness that happens. I'm very conscious of the safety aspect when it comes to that. And so when we develop that, or we're already kind of starting to develop that, it's going to be done in a way that is heavily audited, correct in every way, shape, or form, I guess you'd say. And it's gonna take a lot of math and a lot of correct math. So we're gonna have to test it a lot. But once the minting protocol is perfected and put into place, um, we will turn off the distribution phase, and then we will go to what is going to be called the surfacing phase, I guess. And that is when we take the token and bring it up to peg, or we'll reach the surface, kind of thing. And so the minting protocol itself is what controls the inflation once we are over peg. Hence why we need to get that done first before we make a run to peg. Because if it wasn't done, then we'd be over peg and then nothing will happen. And it'll be like, what's going on here? Um, but yeah, so once it's over peg, because we want to keep it normalized at $1, it will inflate to bypass holders and some other kind of concepts there. Take me another hour to go through, but yeah, so that's why the minting protocol needs to be completed first before we can turn off the distribution and then make a run to peg. And that'll be the surfacing phase. Now, after the surfacing phase, we'll go into like a operational phase, or like the final form, which will be when we as a team essentially um, take all of our hands off the project essentially, and it'll be completely given to the community. And that phase will also include the entire governance and everything else for it. And so what that means is that anybody can build off the token. The community will then have say of whether or not people who are building on the token are acceptable via vibe classes or not acceptable via the vibe classes kind of thing. And then it'll be just completely open to the community. And so yeah, that'll be the last phase. It'll take some time to get to because obviously, yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done. But yeah.
Okay, so in terms of this, so what's gonna conclude the sorry, what did you call the first stage? So it's not the genesis stage, it was distribution phase.
Yep, distribution.
What is going to conclude this? So up to 25 weeks. So how many weeks
Right.
are we into the distribution phase at the minute? So where is that literally just by going by the price chart? So from the 20th or basically 16th of October.
I forget the exact number now. But more than anything, it's gonna conclude once we have the minting protocol completed. So we do have kind of like a time frame. And it will probably land around 25 weeks, to be honest. That's what we're expecting anyways. So yeah, once the
so we're kind of about halfway.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Well, more than halfway.
Yeah,
I think there's about like 2 or 3 months left. 2.5.
There's 15. Maybe. It's been 15 weeks. 15 weekly candles here. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Halfway. All right. Cool. So. All right. So then, obviously, so this bootstrapping phase is when. So explain a little bit about this the one swap token, because obviously I've seen. So one of the things as well. So Anders was the first one that we spoke with. So love.io, and one of Anders' projects. So Love is one of the biggest liquidity pools. Obviously the biggest is DAI, and then there's also OneSwap. So do you want to just go into a little bit of detail about the OneSwap token?
Yeah, so OneSwap is a very important token to our ecosystem. It is used to purchase the Vibe passes, which the Vibe passes give you governance rights. So, for example, it gives you the ability to vote. It gives you the ability to add Vibe classes to the system. It's what gives the community control over the system itself. So it's very important to get a Vibe pass. Also, with the Vibe pass, once we are over peg, you will receive inflationary rewards that will bring the price point back down to peg. Now, also with that in mind, the amount of rewards you get will be related to the amount of tokens you have burned since you have purchased the Vibe pass. So there's like a kind of game in that aspect too. So like if you're burning tokens now trading and you don't have a Vibe pass, then what are you doing, right? But if you're constantly burning, especially at a lower price when it's cheaper to burn the token, you're going to stack those rewards in what the Hex community calls a delayed gratification aspect. For later on, you'll receive infinite rewards as long as we're over peg, kind of thing. So also the OneSwap token, once we turn the distribution off, the main reward token will go to OneSwap. Now, OneSwap is also my project, and I can go a little bit into that. The main purpose of OneSwap is to be a liquidity token. So it's has a governance to it as well. And the governance essentially gives people the ability to vote on what pools and what tokens get most of the OneSwap and rewards, and like it'll be in control of the trading rewards at some point in the future. And to get the voting rights for that, you have to make liquidity tokens and burn the liquidity tokens, kind of like what Maria has been doing and what Atropa has been kind of all about, burning LP tokens. So it gives you the ability, or it gives the OneSwap token the ability to always be tradable, kind of thing. So it's going to be burned liquidity for OneSwap. And that will give you the ability to vote on what pools get OneSwap rewards. So once the distribution phase ends, we'll switch the token over to OneSwap for the rewards. Because that's essentially the whole point of OneSwap is to be a rewards token. So that's kind of like the importance of OneSwap in itself, and then the play to get the Vibe pass will be there too to help keep the price up of OneSwap and also the governance of OneSwap as well. I do
So
expect, as I've seen with a lot of other like tomb forks and whatnot, that once we get closer to peg, people will be like, "Oh man, the bypass is going to be key," and they're just going to ape into one swap to get the bypass. So that's why the token, in my eyes, will moon once we get closer to peg, and it will run real hard, to be honest. Which then in turn will help feed all the APRs because it'll be the reward token as well.
okay, so to basically summarize what you've said, the sooner you get a vibe pass, the better. The way to get a
Yep,
vibe pass is with one swap, and getting access to the vibe pass gives you access to the rewards. And
governance.
basically, as it gets closer and closer to the peg, people are going to start to realize the value of the vibe pass, which is in turn going to pump the value of one swap.
Mhm. And then
Okay.
also increase all of our APRs because it's going to be sold or not sold. It's going to be the number given, or it's going to be the token in rewards, which the higher the reward price token is, the higher your APRs are going to be as well.
Gotcha. So those rewards, is that going to be through this front end, or is it going to be
Yep.
through a different front end? Or
It'll be through this front end. There is a
Mm,
one swap website,
beautiful.
but we will essentially combine those in the future.
Okay, nice, nice.
Mhm.
Wow. And I love, of course, obviously the idea of burning tokens as well. I mean, you're supporting the ecosystem, you're supporting Pulsechain, you're
Right.
supporting pegging. I mean, yeah, it's phenomenal. So there's just a few questions here. So what's up, Pedro? I just want to, I don't know if we did answer this. I thought so. Question: why combine one swap, which was doing good to XUSD? Doesn't it create more dump pressure on one swap since you're now using it as a reward token for both? Thanks for answering, boss. I like your work. So can you answer that one, Surfacing?
I think I kind of just did a little bit. But for example, right now the main reward token is XUSD on the XUSD site. One swap though is always going to be a reward token. And now because we use it for the bypass, it will help support the price, and then also for the governance of one swap itself, because people are going to want to be like, hey, I want rewards in my favorite token pair. They will buy more of it to then burn in liquidity so they can't sell it, which will help also then increase the price. But more importantly, the bypass will help support the price of one swap. And as like a lot of other protocols I've seen work, it shows that the that would be sufficient enough to support the price of one swap in itself. Just the ability to mint forever and to get rewards forever on XUSD while over peg gives people confidence enough to buy one swap to then get the bypass. And so that will help support the price of one swap indefinitely. Because then as we grow more people will come in, more people will want the bypass and then keep buying it more and more. And then that will help kind of even out the price chart, if you will, instead of it being like a normal farm token and it just kind of constantly going down in price.
Mm. Okay, so if you were someone that was new that was coming into this, what I mean, there seems to be like a lot of ways that you can sort of play the XUSD game, so to speak.
Mhm.
How for somebody simple, brand new, I'm going to buy some XUSD. Do you think just buy it, hold? What kind of play would you recommend someone to do? Not financial advice, of
So
course.
right. So what I would do is I would time my buys correctly. What I mean by that is I would look at our trading page. We have rewards that we give out in the form of XUSD based on trading rewards. Now what that is that if you trade through specific pairs, while rewards are available in that epoch, you will gain XUSD rewards. So what I mean by timing them correctly is that the rewards run out pretty quickly every turn of the epoch. And so you want to make sure that there are rewards available on the trading pairs that you want to trade through. And then you're going to want to buy the token at that time because then you'll get more rewards for buying the token as well. So that's my hint or advice if you want to enter the ecosystem by just buying XUSD. Now, the
So
rewards that you get. Yeah, the rewards that you
through
get
this
for
here.
trading
Is that correct?
rewards. Yeah, if you scroll down, you'll have to actually connect to see
Ah,
the
okay.
full
Okay.
page, to be honest, which honestly in our front end update, that won't be a thing. Or won't be
Okay.
necessary, I should say. But
Sure.
like yeah,
Sure.
like yeah, so it's interesting because the rewards that you get are actually not going to be in just straight XUSD. They're going to be in the vault tokens. So you'll get an X number or a set number of XUSD, and then you get to choose what vault you want to compound those rewards into. So we're forcing you into a liquidity pool that is also auto compounding and giving you more and more and more rewards automatically. And that helps both you out and the protocol because we want to make as much liquidity as possible right now. So it's a pretty cool concept. It's
Mm.
something that I've created myself. And honestly, it has grown into something that is like, and honestly, it's insane. Because of the aspect of the trading rewards drives volume on those token pairs, it puts the token, it gives a good advertisement for the token pairs itself. And so I have used that concept and aspect to go to other chains and say, hey, would you like to build on our chain and with our project? We can give you some trading rewards opportunities and be like, hey, your token will be in the top 10 on volume on our chain if you do so because of this. And it's a good selling point. And we've actually locked in a couple protocols from other chains to help build on the Pulsechain itself. So we're not only just bringing in other projects, but we're also bringing in other project communities to the Pulsechain via this aspect. So it's really cool. And you want to go down to the epoch number and go to the latest epoch to see the most current rewards. So I think we're on like number
Ah,
226 or something now.
225.
Right.
Okay, so then you'll be able to see like, all right, so hang on a second. So just for example, so MBA, this was another one of your tokens, right? MBA?
Yes, it was. Yeah, that one
Okay.
was actually really funny because it was Maria in the IRC chat saying like, "Hey, can somebody make a token with this, this, and this?" And I was like, "Sure," and I did it and I sent it to him. And that was an NBA token. So it takes
Okay.
a little second
Let's use
to load here. And
okay.
what you'll see is that like the total epoch rewards are the total rewards given out in that epoch. And so the max rewards for LP are the total rewards that are available for that epoch. And if they are the same, then they're maxed out, kind of thing. And then your epoch rewards are how many rewards you got on that specific pair. As you can see, oh, there we go. Now it's loaded, or it loaded a previous one, but it doesn't really matter.
Gotcha. So Freedom Crew has got some rewards available. Scuba Steve, XUSD. Oh, here we go as well. Die
There we go.
Stablecoin,
Yeah. So
Epoch
as you can see,
rewards.
the only one that actually has rewards left is the die pair. Because people, I mean, it's kind of funny because like you would see people be like, all right, it's epoch turnover time, trade, 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 trade. And you can even see it on the chart itself because the volume, on the volume bars, you'll see just spikes in volume every 6 hours because of that.
Sorry, how do we see that only this one has rewards left? What's
Yep. Yeah.
differentiating this one
Because the
compared
max
to others?
rewards is 156,000 and the total epoch rewards currently is 133,000. So there's about 20,000 left.
Ah, I see. Of course. Okay, so here all these max is 15, but it's already given out 15.6. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I see. All right, so yeah, this is 156 divided by 133. Sorry, subtracted by
Subtract.
133. So it's like, yeah, 23 left or whatever it is. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I see. Awesome. And then obviously, like you would have been able to go back on the history and see what kind of rewards you're going to get. So basically, how often the epochs are
Six
what
hours.
is that like a period of 6 hours?
Mhm.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yep.
That's
So it
interesting.
keeps
Okay.
people, yeah, so it keeps people coming back for more every 6 hours.
Oh, John, I think either the microphone just stopped working, or is that just me? If you're talking, I can't hear you. Maybe something happened. Unless it's me, I'm better just double check.
hear me now?
Yes, got you now. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I think my microphone died.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yeah, I can notice the difference now. So,
Right. I'm using these Rode wireless mics. I think the main one just died, or the receiver.
okay. Okay.
So I'm
So,
back.
yeah, 6 hours keeps people coming back to the website.
Mhm. And yeah, because
Mm,
the token itself is very community involvement. Or community involvement is very important for the token. And this is a way to keep the community involved through incentives. And like
gotcha.
it's the game theory. How do we keep people coming back to the website? How do we keep people involved? And this is one way that we can do that. Epoch system has, I've learned, to be a very effective way of doing it. You'll have people setting timers every 6 hours and just hitting it right away, and it creates. It's kind of fun too, to be honest.
Mm. Do you think you'll put a timer onto the website for this, or you won't do that?
Yeah, we've been working on that one as well.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. It's like it's just like free tokens, right? It's the same as this. I'll often look at this, like particularly, I would look at like affection, and then I'd look here, and I was just I'd regularly go here and see, okay, is there any opportunity here to basically start minting some affection with, if there's any little arbitrage opportunity there. So people do this, and I'd check this
Mhm.
like once a day, and I'm sure I mean, obviously, people are definitely taking these rewards because, yeah, like we saw, there's nothing left except for, funnily enough, the DAI stablecoin and the XUSD. So that's something that anyone who has both can certainly look at. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I like that idea. That's really really cool. So,
And it also kind of like, the people who have LPs in those tokens, the more volume through those LPs, the more rewards you're going to get by just making LPs through the taxes that are applied by Pulsex DEX. So,
sure. And another cheeky little on this one, I think. So Sigma, I think it was XUSD and Riz. You could, I don't know if this is still available, but I shared this with someone, and I let them know so that they could. It was one of my. See, look at this. One of the boys from I think from Kenya, and I told him just to do this. So all you need to do is provide liquidity for XUSD and Riz. You can come here, go to mint.af.icu, and you can just keep pressing this button, and you can keep minting one sigma, one sigma, one sigma, one sigma, and you're selling it for. I mean, it's not a huge profit, but it's a percentage. And if you continue to do that, plus you get bonus coins. There's going to be even more bonus coins than what's here, because because I've already done it. I've already extracted all the bonuses that I would have had. This would just be a bonus that I currently don't have. So there's all these little tricks and just fun little
but
things that people end up just
mm,
clicking buttons and getting free tokens, and it's kind of addictive. So
the cool thing about like what you were just showing me here, because it has an XSD token in it, whenever they're minting or making LP with that token, it's always going to be burning the XUSD token, and because it burns on every single transfer, regardless of what you're doing, not just on trade. If you're transferring it to another wallet, it's going to burn it. And so when this is happening too, it's burning the token, which is also going to help the
wow.
price.
Wow. So yes, I never thought of it from that perspective, but that's beautiful. So again, like people quite often ask, like, oh, how do I support this ecosystem? I mean, burn the tokens is one of the best ways to support the ecosystem. You're removing sell pressure. I mean, even like if you think of something like Hex, it's like locking the. I mean, well, that's actually what the protocol is doing. You're burning your tokens and then you're minting new ones when the T shares finishes. But if people did that more for the actual liquidity providing of Hex, but I think it's more of like I like the kind of new mindset that's emerging with this concept of burning tokens, because I mean, really, when you have these mega whales that have, like, going back to Hex, like hundreds of millions of Hex, I mean, there's really like you can see the sentiment it creates on. I mean, I see the sentiment it creates on Twitter. There's always this fear that these mega whales are going to dump on us. So why can't those mega whales go, you know what? I'm actually going to show you on the blockchain that I'm supporting the ecosystem. I'm going to burn like 50% of my tokens because it's in the interest of the price, the upward price momentum of this particular token. Because if I'm just 100% sell pressure, then it's not going to incentivize you to buy in. When you have all these
Right.
little tricks that are burning, you're supporting the ecosystem. And hey, even if you just burn like 1% of your tokens, I mean, like you buy a million XUSD and you burn 1%, like that's no big deal.
Yeah, as
It's
long
a
as you have a
beautiful
bypass, they'll get that back later anyways, kind of thing.
exactly,
And
exactly,
like
exactly.
another cool concept with the whole developing around XUSD is that if you're a developer and you're creating something that uses XUSD in itself, and you get a bypass, later on, I'll have the ability to assign that bypass to your contract itself, or the protocol will have the ability to assign it to that contract itself. So if, like, for example, you create a contract that goes with that contract's doing essentially, that contract is going to be credited all the burns that other people have been doing via your contract. And you can then later on claim those rewards essentially, if you own bypass through inflation. Or yeah, through the inflation of the token once we're overpegged. So like if I create also another simple example is like a reflection token. And the reflection token makes liquidity in XUSD or just rewards XUSD. The token itself will have to transfer or buy XUSD and then transfer it. The XUSD token itself knows that it's a contract that is burning those tokens and then records that. And then you can just go later on in the future if you have a bypass and claim those burns that your contract that you created burned. So you're claiming burns that are from essentially other people through your utility of that token. So it incentivizes builders also to build with the token with future rewards or delayed gratification.
Mm. There's a lot of things going on with this, man. I'm really like, I mean, I'm only just started learning about this, and you're really teaching me a lot. This is actually, I mean, this is really cool. I'm loving it even more and more after this conversation, man. Like, I really love how I really love how this idea also. I didn't get to dig into it too much, but you were talking of like, I think it was on this page. Or perhaps it was this one, where basically, like, you can start to go out to other blockchains and bring those other blockchains into here,
Yeah,
incentivize them through XUSD to build on
yeah.
Pulsechain. And like, even people, one of my best friends, he's trying to create like a gaming like a gaming community token. And so he's already on Pulsechain, but he also could basically connect with this type of ecosystem as well, right? Anyone could do this.
Yeah, like if you like for example, if you use the XUSD token as your main in-game currency, um, all the transfers that your game is going to be causing or whatever that you're going to use the token for within the game itself, the contracts will be burning the tokens because on every transfer the token burns. And then you, as the developer of those contracts, can claim that later with your bypass and receive rewards while overpeg for what your contracts have burned. And because other people are doing it, you don't have to really do anything other than develop the contracts itself. And so, kind of like how Pulse token itself pays out validators for validating the chain, XUSD will pay out developers for developing with the XUSD token.
I love it. I love it. So, um, there's a few questions here that I want to go through, but I want to first address this one from Young Almighty. I think it's good to address these types of things. I mean, I look at this and I'm like, okay, well, what's the counterpoint to this? Because in the interest of transparency, I mean, too many insiders have massive bags. Okay, so I mean, for anyone to even look into, okay, what does that actually mean? Who is an insider? So I mean, one of the first things that you could do if you wanted to check the validity of that statement, and I'm not saying it's valid or not valid, but you can go to the holding patterns and see, okay, how much of the holders got. I mean, the first half of this page is all liquidity. Obviously, there's naturally some big holders, but in the same way, there's also big holders with most tokens, right? So it's a pretty normal thing. So yeah, it's an observation, Almighty, and I mean, I want to. if I'm part of this team, I want to foster an environment where people aren't afraid to say those things. It should be open, and it should be like, okay, if they have a concern, they should be able to say it, and we should be able to address it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
So,
so as you can tell, like if you look at kind of like at the top again, most of the top holdings are all done by contracts. So liquidity, the vault tokens themselves, stuff like that. There's also a few, I think, because we use a multi-sig for our treasury, and we also have like yeah, so we use a multi-sig, which might be a contract in one of those top holdings as well. And the treasury contract or the multi-sig contract gets so every single token when you transfer it, it gets taxed. 70% of that gets burned immediately, and the other 30% goes to our pay splitter contract, which then goes to the treasury and pays the team. Most of it goes to our treasury for in the future we'll be able to do like we'll be able to create like lending platform for like not OTC, but you can lend your tokens for exchange for XUSD tokens. We have it set up in this way because we the minting aspect of the token we want to leave to just the overpeg operations and the minting contract, whereas we take from the tax itself to then use for our backing treasury or other aspects to facilitate the development of the token itself, but most of which are going to be used for like kind of like how the maker vaults work in a way, how you can put tokens into the vault and mint PDI or DAI. But in this way, it's not going to be minting. It's going to be there's going to be a set limit of tokens that you can receive based on what's in the treasury itself. So we're not going to be overinflating it, keeping it at the peg or normalized level. So I know some of the top holders are actually those contracts that are in control of the team, essentially.
so you mean like literally these like for example this one here, or you mean the first one, for example?
Probably the first one, I think.
Okay,
That one
and then
will
these are the
probably be
actual
like
holders.
the pay splitter or the liquidity. I'll have to look up those contract addresses. But and same with the Genesis safe contract or the multi-sig contract is underneath the team's control. I think one of the top one is like the pay splitter, which we don't really even touch. It just kind of sits there, and then the treasury claims from it, kind of thing every now and then. And yeah, but other than that, like I think, yeah, most I think there's like one big whale that kind of entered, which is Rackham. So he has entered, that might be one of them as well. But yeah, I don't
I mean,
think any of the wallets that are right there are I know.
yeah, I think it's an inevitability with any project, right? I think
Yeah.
there's, unless you have something where like for example like stay of proceedings, where it's like 99% of it's in liquidity. When you have these types of tokens, I mean it's kind of a normal thing. And the whales, it's an interesting dynamic. The whales actually, due to self-interest, they also want to support the value of the token as well. So they end up doing benevolent moves to support it, like we see Godwale with Hex, for example. I mean, Godwale could come and just destroy the price of Hex in a day, but he's not going to do that because it's not in his interest to do that, because why would he want to ruin his investment, right? So it's like a pretty normal thing. So yeah, I mean, this doesn't look too out of the ordinary to me. So that's a good comment from Almighty. So we'll just go through some of these comments anyway. So also for the bot, so this was Pulsechain altcoin was talking about with OneSwap. So also for the bot, is the key still owning one mate? I don't know what that means. I don't know if you
So
do or
that's
not.
another kind of project I have that's like with OneSwap. The One Mates is a pretty interesting NFT that was created. It's an NFT slash ERC20 token combination. That's also the artwork is all on chain. So it's like completely on-chain NFT, which are super cool. And so the one mate token gives you the ability to get access to my sniper bot, which honestly, because of XUSD, sniper bot has been down for quite a while, because it took a lot to kind of keep up. Um, but that project will come back here shortly. To be honest, I've been really because now we have a whole team. Once we get things more situated as a team and get the progress of XUSD updated where we need to be, once one mates and the one shot bot will come back. And honestly, the one shot bot itself was probably is I personally think is the best sniper bot on Pulsechain itself. I'll be almost anything else out there.
I didn't catch the last part of that. There was a bit of choppiness. I don't know if it was me. Just the last like 10 seconds of that.
So the ones because our team XUSD can needs to get to more of a stable point before I can really bring back up the one mates one shot bot, which is a sniper bot that I created. That is honestly, I think it was the best sniper bot on chain. I could have a biased opinion on it, but I mean, it would hit tokens on the second that the liquidity was provided and had anti-rug capabilities, like it would front run people who are trying to pull liquidity, kind of thing. So it was pretty sweet.
Okay, nice. I just wanted to also just have a quick look at OneSwap as well, the kind of liquidity setup, and what a chain, all the different liquidity pools. So we'll go through some of these questions, and then we'll kind of round things up a bit, unless there's anything specifically that you want to delve into more. But I'll just see if there's any other questions in here. So yes, I would agree with that. Ricky Paul music, good to see. Good to see there's some people here that are obviously some XUSD fam. So good to see you guys. There's so that's a question to Almighty. So I know, like Aero, is he in XUSD? I mean, he's not in the team or anything like that, but I know that he's probably a community member. So I have nothing against Aero, by the way. I always saw him as just being like, just a kid that was doing his best. That's what I saw. That's what I felt from conversing with him.
Arrow is a good kid. He was part of the founding of XUSD. Between me, Arrow, and Anders from Love.io, we kind of were the first ones to put our head together and kind of come up with the idea of XUSD. But since then, Arrow has left our team, so he's not part of the team anymore. But yeah.
Gotcha. So it's not Harris. Almighty. I swear, Almighty wakes up and he just loves stirring the shit. I see him in the cards.
To be honest, Arrow was there, but almost 100% of the idea and code and everything all came from me. Anders had a lot of input into the formation of it, including like the name and whatnot. And then Arrow was honestly there to connect me and Anders. So
I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character, and I've never had any ill issues with Aero. So yeah, and just like Katrina says here, 532x sounds like an opportunity for small players, to be honest. So these are the kinds of things where this whole stablecoin narrative is really gripping all of Pulsechain. This whole, and it's Pt I is like the spear that's driving it all, but there's all these other players in the background that are like for a long time there. I mean, when Maria started talking about Maria spoke about P stables, so he would talk about Pt I, PUSDC, and PUSDT, and I noticed all the attention was on Pt I, but no one was really talking about PUSDT. But I'm looking at it going, well, if you're a newbie and you want to get your million, and you can't afford to get a million PDI, then PUSDT was a good play. And it's like, okay,
But
then we started talking about Treasury bill. Like I only just realized Treasury bill was also Maria's target for that was the $1 mark, and it's like, okay, that was like 400 and something, and then it's like, okay, XUSD is like 500. So it's like you could almost sort of build a portfolio on just speculating on all the different potential stable coins or the potential $1 mark kind of tokens. And I think a lot of people are overlooking just how damn good that is. So
yeah,
especially if you look at this as like a long-term thing, you could get something like this and avoid the tax essentially.
right, and it's
What were you going to
interesting
say,
too.
John?
Yeah, it's interesting too because like when I created XUSD and the whole mindset about it, I honestly had no faith in PETA. I did not think it was going to get the peg. My previous learnings that I had learned from my ventures into tomb forks and algorithmic stablecoins and just everything about that taught me that there is no way that it itself mechanically could make it to peg. There's no burning mechanism to it actually. There's no way that it can lessen its supply easily. And so then I kind of was like, well, I want to make a token that is similar to it, but has the mechanics that are necessary to by itself just get it to peg. Um, since then, I've kind of changed my whole mindset on that. Now that I've learned more actually about Richard Hart, learned more about the entire Pulsechain as a whole, and like I know P Dye will get to peg. To be honest, like there's so much behind in getting to peg, that like there's just so much to it that it's kind of crazy. And like I'm honestly really happy to have XUSD within that mix, because we'll have two different areas that will be kind of like at peg or around normal, but in two different ways will it get there. Um, so, like for example, the reason why the P stables became such a huge focus is quite simple, really. We have a dollar that we need to reach. It's easy for people to grasp that concept of the price
Mm-hmm.
difference of what we're at now to the $1 mark. Now, I say that because all the P copies are going to get to the respective pegs compared to their ERC 20 copies on Ethereum. Pulsechain wants to be Ethereum but cheaper. So to get that to happen, everything will need to get to their equal value on Ethereum. And it's easier for people to grasp that concept looking at the stable coins because the math is just super easy kind of thing. Where
Mm.
other more volatile assets kind of hard to judge where it's going to end up at. So that's honestly my theory behind why there's a lot of focus on the P stables in general. And kind of like I said before, PDI is tied to almost all the other tokens that are P copies on the chain. And so if we get one to pump, like it will and has been, everything else will also come up with it easily. And I have a theory of why Atropa was created. I think it was an experiment to see what would happen um, before we pump PDOT kind of thing. Because they're all liquidity bonded together. Yeah, we can save that one for another check. um, but yeah, like it's interesting to see what is going to happen with the entire Pulse chain. And you know, with FOMO, once we get closer to that point, so many people are going to be pouring on into the chain. And like I have a lot of focus on onboarding other protocols to build onto the chain. And that's also going to add into it. For example, we have ImperiMax already kind of confirmed to work with us. And they're going to launch a newer protocol on chain, which FYI is going to give a great opportunity to do single-sided lending or single-sided staking for rewards, which everybody loves here on this chain. And
Mm.
plus a whole bunch of other cool stuff. But yeah, like the chain as a whole, if we'll work together, we'll get there. Kind of thing. But yeah, that's my whole theory on why there was a lot of focus on the P state.
And it's really so for you, you've seen enough on-chain evidence that you're like, I feel just too bullish on PDI, basically. And so
Yeah, and
even like, Go on, sorry.
So like coming from not even like on-chain information that's telling me that Peter's going to get the peg, just a simple fact that if Richard Hart didn't want all the monetary energy to go to PDI, wouldn't he say something like, "Hey, don't buy that, buy Pulsex instead"? And I mean, a good business
True.
partner, a good business person would have done that. Which he obviously is pretty successful, so he's kind of keeping it open, which kind of leads me to believe that there is a lot of truth behind PDI getting that.
Love it. Yes, and it's just such a compelling narrative, and I love this idea that XUSD can really it can piggyback off that narrative, but it's still its own thing, and it's doing so many other things as well that makes it extremely interesting.
Mm-hmm. And like not only piggyback off of that, but like once it gets closer to peg, there's going to be a lot of outlets to sell. XUSD could actually flip that piggyback in a way and help pull it back, pull PDI even to peg because of the brain that token has. And mechanically speaking, if left untouched and people just trade it, the supply will get less enough where it will get to peg. Thus, through Richard Hart's law, will also then pull PDI as well.
Exactly. That's something that I really saw. I kind of, as soon as I saw it, it was like I just imagined like yeah, they're just two things that are in harmony. They're like complementary forces, and they'll end up benefiting each other and working together in a way to maintain this stability. So, man. So, this has been a great chat. Is there anything else that you wanted to? Is there anything else that you want to kind of delve into or go into? We're nearly on 2 hours now. It's been an awesome chat. I mean, I've learned a lot. I've really enjoyed talking to you. So, yeah, is there anything that you kind of want to dive into or elaborate on before we kind of start to wrap things up?
No. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to XUSD. I think this is a decent introduction to it. We should definitely have more chats and dive into more little segmented aspects of it itself, like governance, for example, or just some along the bypasses. There's so much that XUSD has going on with it that we could probably chat for hours. Um, so I want to, let the viewers know that there is so much more to it, and that this is just the beginning. And people, you're going to make the most return out of something when you get in the beginning as well. So both knowledge and monetary value together, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, and obviously now that I'm part of the team, we're going to be doing these streams quite regularly. So we're going to rotate with different team members, but we're going to be continuing to go into the more like technical aspects of it. So today is probably more just like a more of an introduction to yourself, so everyone gets familiar with you, more of a total overarching understanding of what XUSD is, and then as the weeks progress, we'll break it down into chunks and kind of go into it in deeper levels, so people can really start to get an understanding of what it's all about.
Yeah, cool. That sounds great.
Lovely. Okay. Any final statements? I'm just seeing if there's any final questions here. Is there a general time frame on the bot? I'm not sure.
For the bot.
Coin.
Oh wow. Oh no, there isn't any potential for XUSD. XUSD is created so that it's closed off, and the only aspects that it could have to drain, I guess, if you want to call it that, would be an over-minting of the token. Hence why our minting protocol, we're taking our time on it and getting it super audited, like several different audits on it, before we even put it into place. Because we're not going to let that happen at all. And then for the bot itself, I don't know, give it about a month or two, I think.
Okay, perfect.
I'm really
Lovely. Great to see. Yeah. If we've learned anything from Richard, it's not to give any time frames anyway. So
Right.
good to see you, Marcus. So yeah, man. Any fun? Oh no, what happened? How did that happen? Here we go. This one here.
There we go.
Any final comments? Any final statements?
Nope. Thank you for having me on. It was great talk. We'll have more chats.
Definitely. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thanks for engaging. Please like, subscribe, share this around, spread the good word. That is XUSD. And let's really work together. I mean, that's the beauty of this. It really seems like something where we're really working on a team together, all of XUSD, to contribute to this P stables narrative, this narrative of stablecoins on Pulsechain. There's different ways of burning. There's different ways of working together. This token is really bringing in the community to work together. So it's really like embodying the spirit of freedom of chain and freedom of movement, freedom of speech. It's really embodying a lot of these core principles of Richard Hart's ethos and what Pulsechain is all about. So if you love Pulsechain and you're a maxi, keep your mind open to this. If you're a stablecoin collector, keep your mind open to this. And otherwise, keep joining, keep asking, and let's all learn together. So thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.